Hello, dear friends. Today is a very special day, April 24th, 2020. It is the 105th anniversary of the Armenian Genocide that happened in 1915, perpetrated by the Ottoman Turks during the First World War. My maternal grandmother was a survivor of the genocide along with her husband, from whom she was separated for 3 years during the war. And at the end, when everybody crossed the desert and whoever survived arrived in Aleppo, they miraculously found each other at the Aleppo train station, where thousands and thousands of surviving Armenians were being brought through villages and towns along the rail tracks. It was an incredible moment. My grandmother has told me about it firsthand. And of course, without that miraculous re-encounter or finding each other, I would not have been here today. My grandmother had been newly married, and she had a 1-year-old baby that accompanied them on the deportations. Vahan, her firstborn baby, unfortunately did not survive the harsh marches of the genocide, and neither did her mother, my great-grandmother, survive. So my grandmother arrived in Aleppo along with her 3 sisters. And when miraculously she found her husband, because people were arriving at the station, shouting out family names, trying to locate surviving relatives, in the middle of all that noise and names being called out, she heard her name. When she raised her head, she found out that it was her husband looking for them. Of course, the first euphoric embrace of having found each other was followed by her faint voice telling him that the baby was dead. And his first reaction was that, of course, it was sad. However, now that fate that had reunited them, this was a moment for them to start again, to start a new family. And indeed they did. They started their family again in Aleppo and had another baby boy who they named after the first one. And that was my uncle Vahan, who unfortunately passed away quite early. So my grandmother lost 2 sons, 2 Vahans, one at 1-year-old and the other short of 60, or I don't quite remember exactly, but he was quite young. And eventually my mother was born in Aleppo, and then the family moved to Egypt. And in Egypt, a few years later, my aunt was born. So I dedicate today's reading to my grandmother, because she and my grandfather were lucky enough to survive the genocide, but millions of their compatriots did not. And here is a poem by one of our Armenian poets who was also martyred during the genocide, Siamanto, The Dance. And holding back the tears in her blue eyes on a field of ashes where Armenian life lay dying, thus spoke the German witness to our horrors. This untellable tale I'm about to relate, I saw with my own pitiless eyes from my window upon hell, in the safety of my house, gnashing my teeth in terror and rage. With these pitiful eyes of mine, I stood witness in the city of Bardes, now turned into ash heaps. The corpses were piled up to the tops of the trees, and from the waters, the springs, the brooks, and the roads, could be heard the roar of Armenian blood, and in my ears the cry for revenge, which now speaks out. Oh, do not wince as I tell this unspeakable tale. Let men hear of man's crimes against mankind, of 2 days under the sun, on the road to the grave, and man's evil unto man. Let all the hearts of the world lend ear. It was a death foreboding Sunday morning, the first sunless Sunday to rise over those bodies. I stood vigil in my room from dusk until dawn, tending a girl stabbed with knives, washing her wounds with my tears. Suddenly, in the distance, a bestial mob appeared, fiercely lashing, driving 20 young maids before them, and howling lecherous songs. The men forced them into a vineyard. Leaving the poor dying girl on her cot, I went to my window as a view upon hell, while the mob in the vineyard became a forest of men. You must dance. When we beat the drum, you must dance, a savage roared. Then their whips began to crack against the flesh of the Armenian women, longing for death. The 20 maids, hand in hand, began their dance. From their eyes, the tears flowed like bleeding wounds. Oh, how I envied my poor stabbed friend, the poor beautiful Armenian girl who, with her quiet moan cursing the universe, released her lily-white dove of a soul to the stars. In vain I shook my fists against the mob below. You must dance, roared the frenzied mob. You must dance to the death. You beautiful infidels, you must dance with open breasts, smiling at us without complaints. Fatigue is not for you, nor naked shame. You are slaves. Therefore dance with bare bodies and uncovered breasts. All the way to death, dance with lewdness and lust. Our eyes are thirsty for your curves and for your deaths. The 20 beautiful maids fell to the ground in exhaustion. Stand up, the mob roared, whirling their deadly swords like snakes. Then someone rushed in with a pail of kerosene. Oh, human justice, I spit in your face. And with that fluid, they anointed the 20 maids. Now you will dance, and here's a perfume even Arabia does not have. And with a torch, they set on fire the naked flesh. The singeing bodies danced and writhed towards death. In horror, I slammed the shutters of my window as if by storm. And approaching the lonely dead girl, I asked, how shall I dig out these eyes of mine? Tell me, how? Siamanto was one of the Armenian poets and intellectuals that were rounded up and massacred on the eve of the beginning of the genocide in 1915. And that date is April 24th, which is why we commemorate the genocide on April 24th. Siamanto was born in 1875, and along with all his fellow Armenian poets and intellectuals was massacred, was martyred in April 1915. I'm going to read you another piece, which is very suitable today, as it is raining outside and it's very sad occasion. It's a piece by Vahan Tekeyan called "It is Raining." It is raining. Autumn is wet, my son. Wet like eyes that love denies and moves on. Shut the window. Close the door of the room and come and sit beside me in the gloom. Sit in silence. It is raining so foul. Does it rain sometimes, my son, in your soul? Do you shiver, son? Do you feel the cold and miss the suns that once shone bright and bold, that shine no more due to unsparing fate? You are crying, my son. Though dark, a late and heavy tear I see roll down your cheek. Is it your lost innocence that you seek? Cry, son, at life's harshness. Cry as you can. Poor prey of life. Cry to become a man. And now I would like to share with you a moment, a rare moment that I was lucky enough to experience earlier this year, actually last summer in Armenia, at the foot of Mount Ararat, and a little clip of a poem by Avertik Issahakyan about Ararat that I had recorded previously. On ancient Mount Ararat, ages for an instant sat and passed on. Lightning struck her diamond crest to destroy her timeless rest and passed on. Endless dreams of frightened men gazed upon her flanks, and then they passed on. 'Tis your turn. 'Tis your turn now to marvel at her proud brow and pass on. Thank you all very much for being with me today to commemorate the Armenian Genocide, the 105th anniversary of the atrocity that took the lives of over 1.5 million Armenians at the hands of the Ottoman Turks. A horrible, horrible murder that still goes unpunished. Many countries have accepted and, of course, made homages and retributions for the genocide. However, the main perpetrator, as well as its allies, refuse to this date to accept this horrible crime. A crime not only against the Armenian people and the 1.5 million martyrs, but a crime against all of humanity. I leave you with that thought, and the thought that if we do not require this major fault to be rectified, if we do not remember and we do not commemorate and ask for retribution and stay silent about it, then we are condoning it. Thank you very much. Be safe, stay healthy, and see you on Monday. I let you have the weekend to reflect and relax.